In a culture that tells us we can choose motherhood or, Good Counsel knows we're meant for motherhood and. Hi, I'm Samantha Elbertson. I work on behalf of the maternity home Good Counsel. We have 4 homes in New York and New Jersey where motherhood is rescued, preserved, and celebrated every day. Welcome to our podcast, Motherhood and, where we spend time talking with women living out their vocation of motherhood and their roles in the community. We speak to pro-life activists, contributors to Catholic culture, entrepreneurs, great legal minds, gentle, humble hearts, those who work on behalf of women in need, breaking cycles of poverty, abuse, and homelessness, and mothers working every day to form and nourish a new generation. This is Motherhood and. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Bell and JoAnn Venezia. Chris is the founder of Good Counsel, and JoAnn is a longtime board member and newly appointed CEO of Good Counsel. Happy to have you both here today to discuss Good Counsel's beginning, mission, and future. My first question can be to Chris. Can you tell us how the idea and the intent for Good Counsel came about?
Well, thank you, Samantha, and really glad to be here with you. It was on 8th Avenue in Manhattan, where I was working at a shelter for homeless and runaway kids, that a mom walked in with a baby. And I was taken aback because most of the people there were young men, teenagers, 18, 19. And I didn't expect a young girl with a baby. I was really shocked, and I asked her, why is she here and how come you're here with your baby? Of course, I was asking also to help her. So she told me that when she first became pregnant, she was excited, she was happy, she thought her life would be different, it would be better. And then she said, when I told my boyfriend, the father of the child, he told me where to go to get rid of this thing. And she said, I felt so alone and depressed, I thought about killing myself. But I realized that I had a baby. Now, this was 1979. This girl hadn't seen a sonogram. She hadn't any great medical background, but she knew, as everybody knows, it's a baby. And that's just what she said. And then she said, I had my baby girl, and my mother said I should be out on my own like she was when she was a young mother. And she looked at me and she said, can you help me? Can you help us? She held up her daughter. And I said, yes, but I quickly found out because she was 17 and a half years old, there were no programs. There was no agency that would help her. There were programs for younger girls, younger mothers. But when you cross that line, got close to that line of being a adult at 18, her option was a rundown, rat-infested drug den called a welfare hotel. And I was shocked. I was there helping homeless kids in Times Square for about 5 years. And every year I saw more and more young women coming in who were pregnant, had children. Some of them were coming from Long Island, where I grew up. I could have gone to school with them. They certainly could have been my sister, my cousin. And I just thought, shouldn't somebody do something to help mothers and babies? So I finally turned to Father Benedict Rochelle, who I came to know, and he became my spiritual director. And I said, why doesn't somebody do something to help mothers and babies? And he was a Franciscan friar, also a psychologist. He had a long beard and a rope for his belt around his robe. Sort of a cross between Moses and Freud, if you will. And he said, I'll help you if you want to do something. And it sounded like the voice of God. And I was really frightened then, because at that point I was 27 years old, single, never married. I hadn't changed that many diapers of my nieces at that time. But I did think if it was God asking us to do this, that he would help us. And that's how it started. We found an empty convent in Hoboken at the St. Francis Parish. And there in March of 1985, we opened the doors and started taking in women and children.
Amazing. Amazing. JoAnn, would you like to tell us about when you got involved?
Yes. I always think of it as God was holding my hand for many years, just telling me that I was meant to be part of Good Counsel in some way. Back in the 90s, my husband was actually in the diaconate program, and he had a summer apostolate. And back then, in order for him to be in the program, we had to do everything together. And so we went to our pastor and said, well, Father, what do you think we should do this summer? And in his big Irish way, he said, I want you to go to Good Counsel homes in Spring Valley, and I want you to pray with those mothers. And so we said, yes, Father. And we went every week. We prayed, we read Bible scripture. We just talked about the sacraments, listened to their stories. And then the summer ended, and we had to go back to the seminary, and it was pretty intense, two nights a week, Saturdays. So we really couldn't continue. But every time we passed that area, we would say, I wonder what happened with this mother, wonder what happened with that baby. So anyhow, going full speed ahead, he graduated, he became ordained. We approached Chris and said, we really like those spiritual groups, and could we go to more houses? So we started to go to all the houses. We went to Poughkeepsie and Staten Island, and we didn't go to Riverside except for the open house because it was really too far. We couldn't do it. But we went to the Bronx. We stayed with Spring Valley, and we just loved it. And it was so interesting. Every time we got in the car, we would always be talking about what happened and that type of thing. And the little children would want to sit on my husband's lap because they hadn't any contact with a man, so it was like a thrill to see somebody with a tie on, but it became a real ministry to us. We loved what we were doing. We talked a lot about baptism. He baptized many of the babies. And one story that always brings a tear to my eye is when we would say, do you have someone who could be a godparent? Many of them did not. They did not know somebody who was a practicing Catholic, but they knew that what we had told them is that they were really heroes for giving biological life to their children in this environment. Now they needed to give spiritual life. And one mother turned to me and she said, and it always makes me fill up with tears. She said, I want you to be my baby's godmother. And I've stayed in touch with her. In fact, her birthday's coming up next month, and always managed to, be in touch and see pictures and that type of thing. But I did that for about 5 of the children. And actually, there's a little boy who is now going to be confirmed and has asked me to be his sponsor. So it's really been a real bond. So time went on, and I went to work at St. Vincent's in Harrison as one of their administrators. And one day Chris contacted the medical director and said that he was interested in starting a home for women who were mentally ill, pregnant, and homeless. And Dr. Malone picked up the phone and called me, JoAnn, do you know anybody by the name of Chris Bell? And I said, yes, I do. I said, I've worked at the Good Counsel homes as a volunteer. And I said, and he's done some fundraising at our local church and so forth. And he said, well, I think I'm going to set up a meeting with him. And so we did. And he said, I really want to start this home. And so Dr. Malone said, well, we'd look glad to help you with the psychiatric needs of the mothers, but we do not have any space on the property. And then after a while, there was a group who were renting a house on the property. It was called the Hannon House. And they said, well, they will be willing to rent it to us. The Good St. Vincent's of Harrison was going to rent that house to us. And Chris was very creative. He was able to redesign the house, make it bigger, more bedrooms. And we started the home there. And then, of course, Dr. Malone again said to me, I think you should be the liaison between Good Counsel and St. Vincent's. And so we had a lot of challenges, but a lot of good came out of that home. So much good. The women got the emotional help that they needed. They were able to take good care of their children. It had a beautiful backyard for them. And it was really something that is sorely needed more of. Almost every house that I've been in, I see women who are emotionally struggling with all kinds of trauma and depression and just anxiety that really does need to be addressed.
And JoAnn, it's
yes.
what we learned there on the grounds of St. Vincent's at Daystar, our Daystar program, that encouraged us, enabled us to say we can take in women with special needs in any home. And now you're seeing it, right? Because we know now how to connect with local resources and the staff, change our expectations. Yeah.
So that took us through getting us into Daystar and that type of thing. Well, how did I get to be CEO now from there? So I was now working with a management company, and I was running the psychiatric unit at Englewood Health. And it was a contracted position that was going to end on December 31st. And I was losing a little sleep. And I was also asked by the board to do a search for the next candidate for the CEO, because on December 31st, our CEO was going to be retiring. And all of a sudden I said, dear Lord, please give me some direction here. And it was like a light bulb went off. And I said, well, if they're needing a CEO and I'm not going to be working at Englewood, maybe I should try this. So of course I called Chris and asked him, please be honest with me. If you think this is a terrible idea, I need to know. Oh, he said, I think it's a great idea. And some of the board members were asking me like, well, have you found a candidate? I said, well, what would you think if I said I would be willing to try this? And everybody was so encouraging. And I just felt so welcomed that I am very happy that Lord held my hand and got me to this point. And I truly see it as a journey. And I've gone to all the homes. I've met with about 90% of the staff at this point. And it's a very encouraging experience where the one unifying factor is that 90% of the people I interviewed said that the mission is what keeps them coming into the work every day. That they are dedicated to the mission that we have, that all life is sacred, and that we need to be able to give these mothers the encouragement to continue that life and to give them all the support that they need to be able to be good mothers. So it just keeps you going. And I'm excited. I'm very excited about this.
It's really a calling. And so it's beautiful to hear your story, because it really is God's hand. And so thank you for sharing. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the mission that we're also dedicated to and how it has evolved over the past 38 years. Right from, did you say it was 8th Avenue, Chris?
Yeah, 8th Avenue in Manhattan. So what happened, we started in Hoboken, very brief, quick condensing history. Within 3 years, we had 3 homes, right? The Spring Valley House, Staten Island, and New Jersey. It was obvious that the need is great. It's still very great. It's a crime that in a country with so many resources, certainly so much economic blessings and so much support, that a young girl today in this nation today is pregnant and alone. Since 1985, things have gotten worse. Worse across the board. There's more child abuse and neglect. There are more single parent families. It's now almost up to 50%. Almost almost every other child born in this nation today is to a single mother. And obviously we're caring for single mothers. We want to help, and we love all mothers, but we want to help girls and boys to grow up to be healthy, mature adults. And the other thing at Good Counsel that we've been able to respond to the needs of moms. In the beginning, we really didn't take in women who had a mental health or an addiction issue. We tried to avoid that, but as God would have it, and as we were led to St. Vincent's and JoAnn and Dr. Malone, another great medical director whom we met along the way, they showed us that we are able in our homes to care for, to help, encourage, and nourish moms across the board. So that's why we say any pregnant mom in need can come to a Good Counsel home. Something happened a year and a half ago that I hadn't seen in, at that point, 37 years. Every year we have at least 2 or 3 moms who come in and say, the doctor told me my baby's going to die at birth. The doctor told me my baby's going to be deformed, that there's a serious physical abnormality. Now the moms are coming to us because the doctor then says, get rid of this thing, have an abortion. And the mom is saying, and I've had more than one mom say these same words, I just want to be a good mom to my baby as long as he or she lives. And I think women, maybe not even with a high school education or barely with a high school education, have a deeper sense and wisdom of life, of love, of caring, a compassion. And here we are in a nation with the most advanced medical technology in human history, the best trained medical personnel ever. And why would they say get rid of a child? Because there's always some opportunity for some type of not only medical intervention, but for science to learn. Right? How else do we learn except that we try to give life, we help life, we support life, we don't kill life. And killing a baby at any point in the womb it's a gross rejection of opportunities and challenges to grow in love and compassion and wisdom. Even children with Down syndrome who are so simple and so honest and really so loving. I mean, if anybody knows anyone who has Down syndrome, they want to hug you, right? They want to care for you. It's so pure innocence. Now, why is there a problem for having simple, innocent, loving people in the world? I mean, we all should be like this. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So why are so many people, when they get a diagnosis of Down syndrome, the doctor quickly says, well, we can get rid of it, or we can let you try again. And it's terrible thinking. But this other mom I was talking about who came to us with a child, and on November 16th, 2021, she gave birth to a baby who was missing part of her cerebellum, whose lungs were too small for her tiny body to get enough oxygen. So she had to have an oxygen tube put in. And her bones are badly misshapen. She has a severe form, they call it, of dwarfism, but also of misshapen bones. And so fragile, so small. And the mom who really wanted to give birth, knowing that this would happen, knowing that there would be a problem from the first sonogram, she said to that doctor, God has a plan. God has a plan. And so right away, the doctor said to her, why don't you sign a DNR? Do not resuscitate. So we'll take care of her, we'll comfort her, but then she'll just die. And the mother said, no, I want my baby to live. I want you to do everything you can to help her. And so against the doctor's wishes and orders, and at some points they even became commands, they treated her. And our Good Counsel staff was right there with that mom, advocating for her and her child. And on November 16th, 2022, we all celebrated the first anniversary of birth of this little baby girl who nobody thought was going to live more than a couple of days. They didn't want her to live more than a couple of days. But through this mother's perseverance and love, deep committed love. This baby is out of that hospital. Now she's not in her at home. She is in a rehab center. So she gained enough strength. Really, some call it a miracle. I wouldn't say that, but I would say because we care enough and are doing the right things, she gained enough strength where she could be moved from an intensive care unit to a simple rehab center. And now that mom is living back in New Jersey, and she's caring for a baby, still visiting with a lot of love, and our staff, whom she got very close to, is still also going there. So no matter what the scenario, and if anybody ever listens and they know someone, or they themselves have a poor prenatal diagnosis, you have to know one thing right away, and that is doctors are wrong 90% of the time when they make these prenatal diagnoses. That's why it took over 37 years, of all these misdiagnoses. And my wife and I have really over 100 situations of family and friends who were told, oh, the baby's going to be deformed. And the baby was perfectly healthy, perfectly healthy. And where there are cases where they might need medical intervention, we are in the nation with the most advanced medical technology. Let's do what we can.
Right.
And that's what love means. Where there's love, there's life. And where there's life, there's hope. And where there's hope, there's creativity. And we all can learn and grow and be happy for trying and not giving up. And certainly never seeing killing as a means to a happy ending. No, that doesn't work that way.
It's our preoccupation as humans we're just so concerned with being comfortable all the time. And it's not comfortable. The picture that's painted by doctors, by TV, by whatever is influencing you, to have a child who has any special needs. But as we've seen, our special needs have just grown. There is no perfect scenario. So there's some lie that when you're pregnant, you think you're going to have a baby and everything is going to be rosy and perfect. And even a baby who's completely healthy, it's challenged no matter what. So the idea that you're never going to be uncomfortable is unattainable. And I feel like that's where it comes from, doctors saying, no, you're going to be so uncomfortable if you have a child who has any form of disability, or nowadays, if you're unsatisfied with its gender.
Oh my
So,
heaven. Yeah.
We don't have to get into
testing. No. They're talking about designer babies, right?
Right. And all of that stems from this desire to be comfortable 100% of the time. And anyone who is a person of faith knows that that's not what we were made for.
Well, I think you said that very well. You said that very well.
I was going to say that I kind of see us as a society that when we look back, it was a society that wanted a quick fix. And
Right.
a very quick story, and actually it was on an Ash Wednesday. My husband had been giving out ashes at a facility in Rockland County, and a man stopped him in the parking lot and said, "Can I tell you a fast story?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Every day I think about the fact that I signed a consent so that my daughter could have an abortion. And till this day, I can't get it out of my mind. There's a particular day, and that was the day that she had the abortion. And every day, I think that that would have been like a birthday for that child. And I don't know if God will ever forgive me, but he said, at that time, it seemed like a quick fix to solve the problem. And I never forgot that word quick fix, because we see it all the time in our society. We want to fix everything and we don't want to suffer. We don't want to be inconvenienced. And so, we're kind of against the culture when you think about it, that this culture is saying to kids, oh, just make it a quick fix. And we have to be able to stand up and say, life is not like that. And that's not God's plan.
Right.
Good point, JoAnn. How many people I've met speaking at parishes who, after giving a talk in the back of the church, have shared that they made that mistake and the words, can God forgive me? Well, we know God forgives all sins, and we know God can forgive, but for the human nature, we know we've removed a unique human life. We'll never see that child again. I'll share quickly when I realized after a couple of years that half the women coming to us have had at least one abortion, that we needed to do something. Now, this was again in the 80s, and I heard about a post abortion healing program called Project Rachel. And Monsignor Mike Mannion, who's still with us, who's down in South Jersey and sometimes visits our Riverside home, he likes to come and play Santa Claus. He had started a post abortion healing ministry. And Project Rachel was to train lay people like myself and religious like himself about the aftermath, the feeling, the anxiety, the loss, because it's not a sin that God can't forgive. Monsignor Mike explained, and there were other women with him who were in this ministry, explained how to hear I'm forgiven is one thing, but to recognize that I had a hand, even if somebody encouraged me or pushed me, or my boyfriend or husband said, I'm going to leave you if you don't have this abortion. At some point, as a woman, I had to, they were telling me, consent to some degree. My culpability may be very, very small. So what's important is to help grieve the process, to accept responsibility, however big or little it was, and then to grieve. Well, I went back to our home on Staten Island, JoAnn. I remember having dinner with the moms and just talking to them about how God can forgive anything, and that we can't say that enough, and it's so important to remember that God's forgiveness is infinite and his mercy is unfathomable. And as I said that, one of the girls took me over after dinner quietly and said, I've never told anybody this before, but the first time I was pregnant, my boyfriend, he was doing drugs, and my girlfriend said, oh, wouldn't it be a sin if your baby was deformed because of your boyfriend's drugs? And she never thought like that. And then she asked her boyfriend, what do you think? And he said, oh, it's your body. You do with it what you want. Well, when a woman hears that, what does she hear? She hears that the guy doesn't really care. It's
You're
you.
alone.
Yeah, it's all up. Yeah, you're alone. It's up to you now, And so she was not enthusiastic, but she went, she had the operation. Then she tells me, when my second son was born, Noel, and I held him for the first time, my first thought was, oh my God, what did I do to my first boy? And she said, I don't know why, but I think he was a boy too. And she looks at me and she asked that question, do you think God can forgive me? Well, that was an easy answer. I said, yes, of course, I know God can forgive you. But as I looked at her and I saw her lower her head, I realized I had to ask her, do you think you can forgive yourself? And she shook her head. I don't think so, because I'll never hear my first baby cry. I'll never see him crawl. I'll never talk to him. So at that time, I had already found a psychologist who knew enough about post-abortion trauma to be able to speak with her. And what he did was ask her to write a letter to her first son. And it starts out like many other letters I've read since then. My dear boy, I hope you can forgive me. I'm so sorry. I really didn't know what I was doing. And someday I hope and pray that you and me and Noel will be together as a family, because I know God loves you, and I pray God forgives me. And he also helps women name the child. He encourages them at some point to give the baby a name. So then you have a picture. And it's amazing to me how many women, not all, and not all men who are involved in abortion, have a sense of whether their child who is aborted is a boy or a girl. It's amazing. Some don't, but many do. And if they don't, my wife has come to help encourage people to name them a name like Francis, which could be a boy or a girl, or Joe, it could be Josephine or Joseph. Or she even says, name them Mary Joseph. You don't know, but this is a person, and they're in the hands of the Lord, and we pray. And that's how we got the Lumina program. It grew out of that experience where we seek now, and at Good Counsel, Lumina, which means light, is not only for good counsel mothers, but for men and women across the nation. And there are days of recollection, and there's referral for counseling. So that's something else you can find at goodcounselhomes.org. You can look up post-abortion healing, and you go to the Lumina website. And again, it's for men as well as women and siblings.
Siblings, right.
The brothers and sisters of people who have been aborted, they sometimes feel survivor's guilt. They wonder. One woman told me recently, she said, my mother named me after the baby that she aborted right before I was born. I mean, I don't know how somebody says that, but how that woman, carries around the name of, she knows the sibling who is no longer with us. But, God is there in love and in mercy, and to bring us together and to bring us to healing and wholeness.
That's so wonderful. With what Daystar was and all you learned there, that you're able to help any woman in all of our homes, all 4 of our homes, with any kind of emotional trauma, mental trauma, because of course you have women who are born with some sort of emotional disability or some sort of a mental disability, and they need help as much as anybody else. But then what they live through, what anybody lives through, having an abortion or having no support or having abusive relationships, any of those things are going to give you trauma, and you need to be able to work through that. It's not, we don't live in a bubble. We're not isolated people. We're all intricately entwined, and our human experience affects those around us and society at large. So we're deleting people from that equation and expecting nobody to notice. And I think that's so important that each of our homes is equipped with all that a mom could need for any kind of support. And then to further extend it, I know personally when I speak to the house managers that we also have any kind of help any of their children could need, right? So any learning disabilities or any medical, emotional, physical help for, because sometimes moms come in who already have kids and they're pregnant and they need our assistance. And so their grown children and the baby that they're having, anything those kids could need is also taken care of. And the case managers and everyone involved in Good Counsel is so wonderful at seeing the whole person and caring for them. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So my original question was, how has the mission evolved over the past 38 years? And I think you can see how it evolved from, hey, young women with, nowhere to turn need help, into this whole multifaceted care, homes, facilities, networks, families. Really is, whenever I speak to anyone, they say that it's a family that they've entered into that they didn't have before. So sorry, JoAnn. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The thing I find that we can all be so proud of is we never say no to a mom. Even if she has come in and said, oh no, I don't like this place, and left. If she wants to come back, the door is always open. And sometimes they need to do that. They need to test us out a little bit to find out, are we really who we say we are? Will we really open our arms and say, it's okay, you can come back? Because they haven't had that, they haven't had that from the man they thought loved them. They haven't sometimes had it from their families. And here we are, and we're basically strangers to them. And yet we're saying, we're here to help. And we're here to help you to have your baby. And there's nothing that we can't solve.
Right. We're here to help you have your baby. We're here to help you finish your school, your certification programs, career. When I said multifaceted, it really is multifaceted. The skills classes, the birthday parties, the field trips, the volunteer opportunities, the getting ready for interviews and and the way the moms are encouraged to give back is
Mm-hmm.
incredible too. In one of the homes, they're planning a potluck because some of the moms want to really bring recipes from their own cultures and introduce them because there's such a variety of cultures and backgrounds in the home. They all want to cook for each other, and I think that's amazing. Like, that's so much more than the practical needs. It's the real emotional. It's a family. It's a family, and I think that's incredible.
And I think that
Yeah.
with JoAnn, let me just as we move forward, I think we'll not only better network with mental health facilities that are in the communities, and she can speak their language pretty well, and but also JoAnn has a sensitivity that we look for in everyone at Good Counsel. Compassion for the moms and the babies first, and sometimes it's very challenging for staff and for even people to understand how could someone be in this situation. But we're all broken human beings, as you're pointing out. What children, which are perfect. There's no group, no
Right.
individual. So. So we're all to help one another. And I think another beauty that we learned from being at Good Counsel, certainly I have, is that it really points out my weaknesses, and challenges my patience and my humility and my understanding and my compassion. And that's what Jesus wants of all of us, right? To grow in love, which means growing in all these other virtues. And you can't grow unless you're challenged. And you can't, and you're not challenged unless you're in situations that challenge you. As you were saying, I think you hit something though of the zeitgeist, Samantha. We want quick fixes and we want everything to be nice and happy, and that's not life. I mean, Jesus Christ showed us life is not so happy. He was healing people left and right, but he couldn't heal everybody because they didn't have faith, and they didn't love him. He was doing the right thing and they didn't love him. So if we, are trying to be Christ-like, we should be loving and helpful and as healing as we can with those around us and ourselves. Be patient with ourselves too. That's another great challenge. I think certainly every American has to be patient and kind to oneself on a true level, and at the same time to recognize we're not going to be liked for it, and we'll be challenged, and people will actually hate us.
Right.
That's true.
It's okay. We're supposed to be uncomfortable. We're not made for this world, right?
Yeah.
Just to kind of pivot, I guess. How do you see the mission has changed with the recent decision of Dobbs and Roe, the overturning and bringing the decision back to the states, politically and within the homes? What are the challenges that Good Counsel might face, or how are we getting ready? What do you see Good Counsel's role in this new landscape?
Do you want to start, JoAnn?
Yeah, my thought really is we need to market ourselves more and more, because I believe that it's something people want to put underground. It's become the norm. You're pregnant, you can't think of a way you're going to take care of this child. You want to just get rid of it. And there's all this publicity about Planned Parenthood and all the different programs out there, but people don't really want to talk about Good Counsel. And so we really have an uphill battle to make sure that word gets out. I mean, I get upset sometimes when people say, I didn't know there was a Good Counsel. And I mean, I just think we can't do enough to get that word out. Whether it's at churches, whether it's whatever the environment is, but we have to be steadfast. We have to make sure that everyone knows that there is an option. It's a good option. It's the best option. And that they will not regret their decision. When they look down the road years later, they will say, thank you, dear Lord, for helping me find Good Counsel. And so we have a strong mission to get out there and keep spreading that word.
I think, JoAnn, you've heard this a lot, and I bet, Samantha, you have too, talking to the moms, how many say, my baby has made my life, not just changed my, but it is my life. And boy, when I was a younger single man, I don't think I appreciated it so much, but I saw the joy and the excitement in a woman who usually came in the door kind of down and frightened and, uncertain about everything. Because why does a woman come to Good Counsel? She has no one in her life who's willing to help her at this hour of need. And talk about Dobbs. JoAnn is so right. We need to let people know there is help and hope, real concrete help here, because in our states, New York and New Jersey, New York, which is the capital, New York City, the capital of abortion in the nation, and New Jersey, which is third among the abortions committed in the nation. There's so much more funding. Our governors and legislators in these two states, and really too many other states, are not only putting more money into paying for anybody's abortion, regardless of where they come from, but what does that say to social workers, to hospital staff, to doctors, to school counselors? What does it say to them? That this is your option. If you got a pregnant teenager or a pregnant single woman or a woman who's got a difficult pregnancy, get rid of it. Well, guess what? You go to other states where they're not training non-doctors to do abortions, which they are in New York and New Jersey now, where they're actually attacking people who are giving charitable help to pregnant women. They're attacking us. They're trying to bring lawsuits against us for doing charity work. And if you go to other states where that's not happening, guess what happens? You go in, a teenager or a woman with a poor prenatal diagnosis, they say, let's see what we can do. How can we help you and your baby? And isn't that the kind of loving society we want? We want not only for the baby, but if it begins with the baby, it's going to expand out to the immigrant, to the elderly, to the disabled, to the loving. I mean, we've got American Disability Act. So we lowered all the sidewalks. And what are we trying to do? Eliminate them before they're born. This is schizophrenic. We should be welcoming everybody, not only into our hearts. We should be welcoming them, no matter how they come into the world, because that's what God would do. That's what He wants. He wants more people. You know how many stars there are? Every year we're finding out there's more and more stars and planets and universes. Now that we can look to the end of the universe, so when Abraham looked up and God said to him, your children will be as numerous as the stars in the heaven, he probably, if he counted, a couple of thousand, 4,000, 5,000 with the naked eye. That's what he could see. Today we know there are a gazillion stars out there. And that's how many people I think God wants. So let us welcome
God
him.
wants all the people He made.
Yes. Amen.
He wants all the people He made. Yeah. The end, right? I think we totally underestimate babies because they are coming in this vulnerable form, but it is a human life that will change your life forever. So you're not just a mother now having to figure out what to do with this thing that can't take care of itself. I mean, I know my children have changed my life. They have challenged me to be better, to dive deeper, to see the world around me in a different perspective, and not just that rosy, through a child's eyes. I mean, really challenge and question and learn more about my own humanity just because I had children, right? So to say, and it is a beautiful thing that you see over and over again, a mom struggling with no family, nowhere to go, and God says, here's your family. Right? Yeah. Here is your flesh of flesh. And they have that baby, and it is a challenge. But like we said, life is not comfortable. It is a challenge, but they don't regret having that baby. And I find it, I don't want to discount anyone's experience, but I find it so hard when you hear those. There's some random stories in the news where they say, or anyone maybe on the sidewalks challenging for abortion, saying, I wish I was aborted, or I regret having my kid. Like I can't be real.
So a quick story about Isabel, a mom who is with us on Staten Island, and she was a pretty joyful mom, one of the more enthusiastic, engaged, helpful, and she got a job in Manhattan, so it was a big commute, but to work with special needs kids at a daycare, and she
Mm.
loved her job. And she gave birth to a little boy with us, and she moved out into her own apartment, still on Staten Island, still did the commute. She'd bring a little boy into Manhattan, put him in another daycare when she worked. But she was just the epitome of, you'd say, a happy mom. Well, her son, when he turned between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, somewhere in that, he was diagnosed with autism. And at first, even she was taken aback, but she quickly realized, and these are her words, God prepared me through my work and loving other children to be a really good mom for my little son.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, and that's her insight. I mean, it overwhelms me, like you say, how much we learn from each other and how much she learned and teaches us. And what a witness. What a witness.
Mm. That's beautiful. So for Good Counsel and women, that what are the challenges, or how do you feel that in this new post-Dobbs, post-Roe world, what do you see as our new way forward? Are we just continuing to do the same old, same old? JoAnn, you spoke to marketing. We need to be out there more, and be the first thought in a woman's mind if she does need help, as opposed to get rid of it, the quick fix. How are we preparing? How are we positioned to handle more moms saying, okay, well, I can't get an abortion as easily because I'm in this state. So I do have to explore my choices, or I am, which is funny, right? You have so many choices. The idea of counselors giving counsel of more choices, of Good Counsel as an option, maternity homes across the nation as options. What is it that we need in order to prepare for potentially more moms coming into our homes?
This might sound kind of grandiose, but my thought has been, since I've been here the few months, that all of the staff have to be able to think of each of our moms as a trauma victim. And it's great to think that we'll have psychologists who can help them with trauma, but it's not there. Our psychologists, our psychiatrists, in some cases, are not pro-life, number one. But secondly, they're in very big demand, so that sometimes if you call and try to get an appointment, you could be waiting for months. What I would like to see as a vision is that we try to train as many of our staff as we can to be sensitive to the fact that every mother who walks into these houses is probably the victim of trauma. And that's not a far-fetched thought, because I worked in psychiatry for a long time, and that was a norm that we kind of set up, to always think of everyone walks in as a trauma victim. And they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to say, I was traumatized. They have to get to know you. They have to trust you. But it means a lot to be treated with sensitivity, even to the point of touching. I tend to be somebody who likes to touch people on the arm or shake hands or give a hug, but I have to be mindful of the fact that touching for a person who's been traumatized is extremely painful, emotionally. So I think that's the type of culture change that we need to address. And the trauma could be, again, the previous baby was aborted. The trauma could be they thought that they could trust the father of this child and he doesn't want anything to do with them, or he thought they could trust their own mother who said, you're having that baby, you're out of here. So there's a lot of different levels of trauma, but it's serious. And unless we can deal with it, their ability to really be independent, to be feeling self-worth, is very minimized.
And I think that's underscored because over the years, in the past, mothers may have been raised by their grandmother. A lot of the early women coming to us, they had a grandmother who was, if you will, a solid citizen. their own mother may have had problems, but this grandmother was their rock. Now, the women coming in, they don't have anybody. The grandmothers are, also way out or just not supportive. So I think JoAnn is seeing the need much deeper than we've seen before. And we want to open up more homes and have more beds and make our services more available. Online, you can go to goodcounselhomes.org and find more than 230 maternity homes throughout the nation. And those are other resources for women. I think we could develop online resources also for the women who don't need housing and don't need to come in directly, but there might be maybe opportunities, classes like online doctor visits. We'll have online counseling visits. I hope we can expand our reach in every direction and encourage more maternity homes, not only to open but also to be open to every pregnant mother in need. That's where I see us going. We're in a little bit of a vanguard in doing that, but I know there are other willing and people who are being inspired today to go forward. And it's true not only in our states that are so deeply entrenched in promoting abortion, but even in those states where abortion is being eliminated. Thankfully, there will be women who need help and guidance. And I think some of those states are starting to fund, actually give government money, which we don't accept because we want the freedom and not the restrictions that government grants would have.
Right.
So yeah, we certainly see growth as an option, right? As we see birth and growth, it's all part of our
life.
DNA. Yeah.
It's all life. That's great. That's great. Yeah, to be available to more women, and like you've mentioned before, in states where counselors maybe previously gave you one option of to get rid of it, especially if you were a young mother. Now that they're able to give more options, like Good Counsel, like so many other services across the nation, we need to be prepared, and we need to, and if we're going to be marketing and saying, getting our name out there more and letting women know that this is that life is possible, that life is preferable, that they are wanted, that their babies are wanted, then yeah, we're going to expect some more people to come in. So we need more homes. We need more integrated staff to be able, that's correct, to be able to sustain and help each mom and support them in the way they need. I know it's beautiful on the on our call, our hotline. They're able to field calls from women who have every level of need, from full come into the house, and live with us and be supported, to I can't get diapers this month, and so we set those things up too. So to have something online for that would be pretty excellent. So things to work for. And I guess that's kind of leads into my next question, which is the short-term, long-term, see the future of Good Counsel. But that seems like it's it's beautiful, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. So here's a funny question. What is the end game? What would make Good Counsel close its doors and say mission accomplished? What is the dream, pie in the sky, that work is done?
I don't think that that's a reality, because from ancient times, God told the people of God that you have to take care of widows and orphans. And so widows are those without husbands. Orphans are often looked at as children without fathers. While it would be wonderful that there was no need, I don't think that's realistic. However, what Good Counsel will probably do, with the help of God and many people, good people like we have today, continue to meet those needs, those special, particular needs of the society at that time. Hoping abortion does become unthinkable in this nation and throughout the world. Hoping I might see that, we might see that, before we leave the earth. That it's no longer legally or morally acceptable. Still, we know some women will seek that out. Some men will force it upon them. And yet we just need to keep being compassionate to women and children. And maybe they won't be as great a need, and that would be fine, if we had fewer homes, maternity homes in the nation, because there isn't as greater need. But it's probably not realistic at all to just close our doors.
No. How about a high and a low from each of you from your time at Good Counsel? On the spot, go. Don't go too low, though. I already cried once.
Wow.
JoAnn, would you like to start?
I would say that the high was when I got the vote of confidence from the board. I mean, I consider them all wonderful people, wonderful colleagues, but I thought they would say, oh, nah, I don't think it's a good plan. So that was really a high. The low. I can't think of one thing that I would say was really low. I mean, I think in the very first few days here, or maybe even the first week or so, there was a lot of anxiety on my part, of thinking about what to do first. It seemed like there were a lot of different things going through my head. This issue of trauma is near and dear to me because I've worked with a lot of women who are traumatized. But then I had to kind of back off and say, wait a minute, this program's been running for a very long time, JoAnn, and you're going to be able to fix some things, but it's not going to happen like yesterday. And that was my, idea about that quick fix thing, that I too sometimes want to fix something really quick because there's mothers who need it. But then you have to realize that it's going to take some time. So slow down.
But I feel that way all the time.
Back in 1988, I got a call. I was speaking at a parish in Hoboken, and the call from the Spring Valley home was that little baby Thomas had died. He was sent home from the hospital with some kind of respiratory alarm system, which I couldn't imagine why the hospital would send him home if he needed this, but they felt that he could do okay. And if his breathing dropped, that we could get him to the hospital in time. But whatever happened, his life ended. And in the drive from Hoboken to Spring Valley, I kept thinking, what do you say to a mother whose baby has just died? And I realized there's nothing I could say, but I certainly could listen. And we not only would pray together, we buried baby Thomas in the cemetery at St. Anthony's in Nanuet. And since then, we've buried too many babies, mostly those who have been miscarried, because even a child who dies before birth is still a child. The mother, in these cases, names the child. And I remember another time where we were going from the funeral parlor to the cemetery in Union City, and we went right by the little funeral cortege that we went right by the abortion mill that was on that avenue. And the thought crossed my mind, babies are dying in there today. It was a Saturday morning. And nobody is thinking or praying about them except the pro-lifers who are outside, trying to counsel women. But here we have a family. Not only was the mother, but her family rallied around her at this moment, praying for her little lost Johnny. And we're burying him, putting him in the hands of God. So when we recognize that life is valuable, even though it's very sad and often traumatic, the beauty that comes out of that is that we are recognizing every life is valuable. And for whatever reason, God chooses, because obviously this is not our choice. And the people who say, well, God, why would God kill a child? We don't know. We don't have answers. Even in scripture, there are so many, Job says, I don't know, Lord. Ultimately, he's saying, I don't know, but you know more than I do, and we don't know in this life. I'm sure, I believe, I hope, in the next life, if we get to heaven, we get a lot of knowledge we don't have now. But what's important is that, again, we do the right thing, which is loving and compassionate and helpful and hopeful, as much as one can be hopeful.
If a woman is pregnant, she shouldn't have to worry about how she's going to carry, deliver, and care for her child. She can call Good Counsel. We need you to help spread the good news that Good Counsel's doors are open for all women pregnant and parenting and in need. Please join us and be an advocate for motherhood. Subscribe to our podcast, Motherhood and, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please be sure to visit Good Counsel's website for more information and to get involved at goodcounselhomes.org. We ask that you share our maternity help website, help.goodcounselhomes.org. Please share this website with others often so that it will reach more women in need. Subscribe to Good Counsel's YouTube channel for more inspiring and edifying content about maternity homes, the pro-life movement, and the life and ministry of Good Counsel's founder, Father Benedict Groeschel. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Good Counsel Homes. If you have any questions or ideas for future guests or topics, please message us on Facebook or Instagram. Remember, life is love. Talk to you soon.
If you will, the high points. Every time I see a baby born, it's another high point. And we've had one baby born every week so far this year, which is going back to pre-pandemic levels. It is so marvelous. And I just had a granddaughter born in January, and I'm thinking all these kids are in her class, and it's just a marvelous feeling. And I looked at her this morning, and she was sleeping but breathing so little, 3 weeks old too. It's just like, wow, how nobody remembers when they're that small, but obviously we, somebody cared for us, and we know we were loved and nurtured, and we were blessed to know we were loved and nurtured. Really, that's part of almost a duty and justice. We have to share that with those who may not be, or who are in danger of not being loved and nurtured and cared for. So I thank you. I thank everybody who's listening, and very grateful, to help us spread this, this love, and that's what we're here to do.
And never forget to pray for Good Counsel, the mothers, the babies, the staff, because we all need prayers from everyone out there listening to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I speak to the house managers, I try to extend that to them each week. I pray over them for this endurance and perseverance, but ultimately the gift of submission, that they can recognize they don't have to do all things, but that God will do it through them, so that they have that strength through God, and not, because they'll run themselves ragged. I mean, they're doing everything and everything from in the hospital with in the NICU with babies, to throwing first birthday parties with personalized t-shirts. And I mean, they go all out. And cooking dinners for holidays. And I mean, they are everything. And so, yes, please always pray for the staff at Good Counsel, because the work is not easy. It is a labor of love, and it is truly through God's grace that it is happening.
100%.
Well, thank you again to my guests, Chris and JoAnn. So God bless the moms of Good Counsel, past, present, and future. And Our Lady of Good Counsel, pray for us.
Pray for us.
If a woman is pregnant, she shouldn't have to worry about how she's going to carry, deliver, and care for her child. She can call Good Counsel. We need you to help spread the good news that Good Counsel's doors are open for all women pregnant and parenting and in need. Please join us and be an advocate for motherhood. Subscribe to our podcast, Motherhood and, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please be sure to visit Good Counsel's website for more information and to get involved at goodcounselhomes.org. We ask that you share our maternity help website, help.goodcounselhomes.org. Please share this website with others often so that it will reach more women in need. Subscribe to Good Counsel's YouTube channel for more inspiring and edifying content about maternity homes, the pro-life movement, and the life and ministry of Good Counsel's founder, Father Benedict Groeschel. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Good Counsel Homes. If you have any questions or ideas for future guests or topics, please message us on Facebook or Instagram. Remember, life is love. Talk to you soon.